大家好，大家好，สวัสดีครับ Today's clip is gonna blow you away. Even if you don't speak Chinese, Japanese, you don't write the characters, or you're learning, or you're a native speaker of those languages, you may see something in today's clip that blows you away. Some of you may have this already inside of you, but you never knew it was there. So to start off, let me show you these characters. Okay, even if you don't understand what they are, do they look symmetrical to you? Do they look balanced? Do they look aesthetically pleasing? So these are three key points. How about now? Okay, how about now? Let's try these again. How about now? Okay, here are some others. So, same questions. Are they symmetrical? Are they balanced? And are they aesthetically pleasing? How about now? And now? What about now? Now it's really interesting. In those first fonts that you see, they're quite boxy and they're quite symmetrical and they look correct. But then as we got towards the characters that we're more used to seeing, whether it's handwriting or even normal kind of print characters, we thought, well, wait a minute, they don't look symmetrical. And when you flip them upside down, they definitely didn't look symmetrical or pleasing. So what's going on? Are they symmetrical? Are they balanced? Are they pleasing to the eye? Is beauty just something in the eye of the beholder, or is there science to it? Well, there's science to it, and today I'm going to show you that science to the symmetry and the balance of Chinese characters, or Hanzi, Kanji in Japanese. Now this isn't me making it up. This is from a book 写好钢笔字的书. This was thankfully gifted to me by a good friend, thanks Pete. Many years ago, he brought it over for me from Taiwan. And as I opened it and read it, I was saying, yes. I've been writing Chinese characters since I was a kid. And you know when you're writing something that looks unbalanced. And you know when you see handwriting that looks absolutely stunning. But you don't know why. And people will say it's all in the balance and you have to get your characters balanced. But what does that actually mean? There's an important principle to balance that the book talks about. Have a look at this. So this is my pen, and right now it's balancing on my finger. So that center of balance is right where my finger is on the pen. If I shift my finger to the left or the right, the pen is going to fall over. And I'm not going to do that because it's going to knock my microphone and everything over. So what would happen if I put something heavy here? Where would the point of balance go? Well, I would probably have to shift this further across to that, so this could counter. The other way to do it would be, if something was heavy put there, this would extend out to counter the balance, and you could put something lighter, but it would have to be further away. So those are important principles when we're looking at Chinese characters. So you've probably traditionally used graphs like this when you're writing and practicing your Chinese characters. And even if you've been using a brush to learn how to do calligraphy, maybe 行书 or 草书, you learn the 永字八法, the 8 basic strokes. You're always doing it in this square grid. And so for example, the number 3, you're drawing it across, in the middle, down below, looks symmetrical, looks nice. But is that really how the number 3 should be written? And you quickly know if you're writing with a brush that it doesn't look anything like that. So this is in a kaishu font. So kaishu is still standard print. But you can start to see that actually things are starting to go not symmetrical. But does it look balanced? Well, yes it does. Does it look nice? Yes it does. So it's not symmetrical, but it's balanced and it looks good. What's going on? And now check this one out. So this is getting more into 行书, so more like the semi-cursive writing. And have a look at that. Is it symmetrical? Well, it looks balanced, but I don't know, is it symmetrical? Look at the direction of the lines. The top line is actually going to a different direction slightly than the bottom line and the middle line. So what's going on? They don't really look symmetrical at all if you're analyzing it like that. but it still looks nice and it looks correct. So, is it correct? Is it balanced? Is it symmetrical? So this is where I want everybody to have a mind shift. From now on, when you're thinking of writing characters, don't think of this square. So when we're writing Chinese characters, rather than a square box like we just saw, we need to think of a 6x5 grid. And it's not saying you think of a 6x5 grid for every single character. You have to consciously think about it. But this is the science of the aesthetics. And so there are some fundamental shapes or forms that characters fit into. Now, this one I'm going to show you is the core form. And this is used for 75% of all Chinese characters. So what you do is you start from this point here and you draw between there and I'm going to intersect up here, and then I'm going to come down to the bottom here, and then I'm going to come across to this corner here, and then up like that. So it's almost like you've got something flat, and then it's being tilted down, and it's being pushed up like that. And so it's a pitch in perspective. The perspective shifts. But where's the center of balance here? Well, for a moment, I'm just going to draw a straight line down the center here. The center is if we were looking at a 2D grid. Okay, so I'm going to draw it down there. And so if I click off now, this is the base shape that 75% of Chinese characters fall into. So how does that gel with the original shape then that we were looking at? Well, let's have a look. So I'm going to morph this down thanks to my Adobe Illustrator. So if I hit an E there, okay, that's the shape that I wanted. And I'm going to morph this down like that to that corner. And then if I take this corner here and I morph it down to that, have a look what's happened here. This is really weird. I just get this dialogue out of the way. So we have a center of balance here, and here we've skewed it. And so this doesn't look straight now. You can see that it's not parallel to this middle line. But when we write characters, we're actually lining them up, and we're feeling like there is a horizontal and a vertical, but this is not parallel. So what are we going to do? Well, that's easy. If we want to find the center of balance of this shape, we have these diagonals here, that's correct, and this is cutting it off where they intersect. All we have to do is make this line here a straight line. So I'm going to get this line parallel first, and so if that's parallel, but then all I have to do is take this line and line it up there. That is where our center of balance is going to be. And so if we take this, let me just take the grid off now. This is the core shape that you should be thinking of when you're writing characters. Don't believe me? Let's have a look. So now I'm going to bring that san, the number 3 back and drag it in on this. And this is going to blow your mind. Look at this. Okay, so I'm putting it up there, lining it to the center. Whoa, look at that. All of a sudden, everything makes sense. Now, this line is not perfectly horizontal, right? The horizontal would be coming across like this, but this is going up. But look at this. Perfect. This one looks closer to this. So you can see that they're skewing out, but it's fitting perfectly. Not only that, look at this center of balance. And even the stroke lines going down there are following it perfectly. So that's not a perfect 45-degree angle, but because it's following that perspective skew, it's fitting on perfectly. Not only that, look at the brush stroke here. Coming down is fitting perfectly onto that angle of that line. Coincidence? Let's have a look at another character. So this is a character that everyone should know if you've ever done calligraphy. This is Yong, meaning eternal. And so Yong zi ba fa, the 8 base strokes. So you've got your dian. And this is coming down like this. This is going up like that. Now take note that these angles here are actually important, and you'll see it's bisected by the parallel to this. And then have a look at this. So because there's so much going on here and across here, it's shifted over from that straight line down here to this base center line, but it's still balanced. So it's still finding its center of balance here, trying to counter for these things. But have a look at that then. That comes perfectly down on that line. And then this one, to counter from the offset here, is being brought over onto this line, and it's falling perfectly down on that line there. And so here we have beautiful symmetry, beautiful balance, and it's very aesthetically pleasing. But is it dead straight? No, it's on this skew. And this is the base shape that we can use for 75% of characters. So have a look at this. This is 走, meaning to walk. So it's actually balanced across this middle line here, not the actual middle line of that trapezoid. And you can see this comes down perfectly again on this line, and this comes down beautifully here, and it finishes just before this line here. Is that a coincidence? No. But I think in every native speaker of Chinese, this is kind of just baked into you. You have it in your software running, what looks good, what looks balanced, what doesn't. I think for many people, you've never had it actually explained like this. Maybe you have. But this is amazing. This is the science to the balance of Chinese characters. Here is another very common character, and have a look at those hung strokes, the horizontal strokes. They're just following that perfectly. Goes across, that goes up on this angle, and they follow out like that. And you can see as the base gets closer to the bottom, this angle, rather than going up like that, starts to come down closer to this perfect horizontal. And you'll notice that the across stroke isn't actually straight across. It's kind of like a figure eight. And if you ever use the maobi, the brush to write, you know, you sort of have to get that figure eight kick in your wrist as well. So you can see it here, and that helps you get this angle. But look at that. Like, you can actually see the horizontal stroke of the font there. So it's not perfectly horizontal, but it's coming down further, whereas this is actually angling further up. So as I just mentioned, this is the reverse. In Chinese, we call the original one is the 基本台型, so the base shape, and this is the 逆台型, the opposite to the base. So it's basically flipped over. So you have the top part is the longer part, and it's coming down like this. And so one character that would fall into that, 是, meaning market. And you can see it's coming down on this line of it, but this lines up beautifully where it kicks in, goes out. Look at those. They're just beautiful. They align along these diagonals, even though diagonals are not perfect 45-degree angles like we would have had in the perfect square. It aligns beautifully. Okay, so this is the opposite to the base shape, or the inverse of it. And then we have the one going tilted into the right. And so if I bring a very common one is 和, you can see that here. And again, it aligns. So you've got the heavy bit here. And so then it needs to be offset there for the smaller kohl on the side. And this is the opposite of that. This is tilting into the left. And so here's a sample character, li. And look at this. If I place this here, you can see it just fits beautifully on that. And you can see these points from the center here to the real center, just offset, keeping that balance there. So these are the three shapes. So that's the inverse, tilting to the right, tilting to the left. That brings you up to about 98% of all Chinese characters falling into just those four shapes. But this one is the base. Now, I want to show you something that is going to absolutely blow you away. So it's not just the base character. So as you would know, in Chinese, we have these 部首, so they're radicals that are put on. And when you see a radical, sometimes you'll see that the balance and the symmetry of the radical is actually kind of different to the main portion of the character. I'll give you a look. So this is the character Li that you may know. So you've got this Li, and you have this Wang Zipao on the side. And so if you look at the angles of this portion here versus this, they're different. What's going on? So there is a rule, an aesthetic rule, as to how to balance the side radicals like this. I'll show you. So I just get rid of the character there for a moment and have a look at this. You imagine that there are lines radiating out from the top corner. And if I put the grid down the bottom, you can actually see it. They're coming and touching those points there. And so if I take the grid away, it looks like this. And so the general rule is that when you have a radical on characters like this, then the points of the radical all go along these lines. So you can see while the angle of this line and the angle of this line are very different, but they're all shooting up to this top corner point here. And so this is the logic of how you balance the radicals of your characters. You don't just write them as though you were writing the normal character. So if you wrote this as Wang, it wouldn't look correct. If you just did it straight down, it wouldn't look correct. I'll show you another one. Cheng, city. That's actually where we get the word Chiang, like Chiang Mai, Chiang Rai in Thai. And you can see here, now this is in Xingshu, so it's more of a cursive form, but you can still see the angles going on there. This line is sort of following up, but look at these. They're kicking up. They're all pointing in. They're a little bit off. When you start to get more cursive, the angles might go off a bit, but the general rule is that your bushou, radical, will be pointing up to this top corner here and placed in a position that's going to offset the balance of the main character to give it this nice shape. So there you go. Did you learn something new? This is mind-blowing, just realizing there's actually a science to the balance and the symmetry of Chinese characters. And this is baked into the operating system of most native speakers of Chinese and Japanese. You just know when something's off, but perhaps nobody's actually ever told you and spelt out what the actual rules are of symmetry. So if you're a learner of Japanese, Kanji, Chinese, even if you're learning Korean and you're learning both not only the Hanja but actual Korean characters, because they're still based on these brush strokes, or you're learning Vietnamese and you're into the Zhenom, this is going to help you get your symmetry in your characters. Thank you so much for your support. Don't forget to like, subscribe, but more importantly, share this with people that you think will see value in it, whether they're native speakers, whether they're linguists, whether they're people learning Chinese, Japanese, Korean. Send this on to them because it's really going to help them get the language in their muscle memory. Yeah, I know people are texting more often, but there's nothing like really having those characters in your muscle memory to get the language into you. I'm Stuart J. Raj. I'll see you on the other side.